everybody. Welcome back to another episode of A Good Life You. And I know this is kind of a series of technology leveraged services, but I kind of am going to call this one my Back to the Future episode with my good friend Ivo Ivanov. And we met Ivo last time, but I asked him to hang with us today. And, what we're talking about today is about technology and about the future, and how you get there and where you've been. All of these things have interesting perspectives because with technology, IDD services isn't the first to get to the future. The last episode, Ivo, we talked about sort of the vision of the future being a 50-year vision, Wolf Wolfenberger.
Yes.
In the 70s, his vision and the world's vision became living a normal life, right? And, I didn't mention, another mentor of mine, but Dr. Todd Risley, his vision was a great book, Get a Life. It's all the same thing, it's like wanting and wishing that people with intellectual disabilities, and now, by the way, seniors, right, who get stuck in assisted living, everybody's wishing for everybody who needs help to live independently that they can have as normal a life as possible and live a life that you and I live. That's what we're trying to do. And last episode we talked about how technology has taken us to the future. And what we talked about a lot was that technology has got rid of all the things that has gotten in the way of us having the life that we really want to lead. And I think, Ivo, remember we talked about technology being a store killer. I use that word. It's like, what was that? Blockbuster, right?
Yeah, and Netflix, yeah.
That
was a good analogy.
I think Netflix and I think Amazon and all these visionary companies, they looked out in the future as far as they could see, and then they sort of tried to do the best thing that technology would let them do, right?
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
So at the time, for Netflix, it was downloading, right? Or mail.
It was mail DVDs.
Yeah, directly to the customer. But then it was downloading, and then the vision kept changing.
Original programming they have now.
Right.
And that's really most what Netflix does.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was their vision at the beginning, but it might have been. I certainly think when we talk about a normal life of disabilities, we can envision that. But, since the pandemic, everything's changed. I really feel like what a good life is better after the pandemic. It is better. We're recognizing that we don't have to go to the store anymore. We don't have to go to the work anymore, but we can still get stuff and work, but we don't have to go to work. We can transport ourselves or work remotely and virtually. I know we can't do that with everything, but we got a lot of stuff out of the way, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I was thinking about technology and normalcy. Imagine if in your life today, all the technology is taken out, is canceled, and there's no technology. Would that be a normal life? No, it will not. Normalcy and technology are so intertwined in 2022 that you can't imagine one without the other. And I'm convinced that if Wolf was writing now, or Todd, they would definitely incorporate technology in their vision.
Yeah.
And that's where we are.
It is. But what I see is these other companies, these other industries, their vision was incredible, first of all. And how they got there, they like to pick the closest thing they could do to what technology made possible, and then they kept making it better and better and better. I think in services, you get wrapped up into what the rules are. It's so regulated. Everything sort of puts all of these constraints around things that maybe make it harder to get to the future than, other industries. I was interestingly looking at some policies that's starting to emerge in our industry where they would say, hey, people with disabilities need to choose between virtual support, need to be able to choose between virtual support and in-person support. And it's like, nobody else makes that choice, do they? I mean, it's like, we never choose between virtual. It's omnipresent. It's like we're here and virtually at the same time, and I can't imagine a life anymore where they're not intertwined. You know, vision is very, very distant goals, right? Like, you have to really see where you're going. As far out there as you can see is beneficial to get up on the summit and look as far out there as you can see, so you can kind of see what's currently possible and what might be possible, right? That's vision. But the plan on how you get there is really where all the rubber meets the road. Yeah. Getting rid of the store we talked about. All those places got rid of the store, but the only way they got rid of the store is by focusing on how do I avoid the store and deliver a product or services directly to the customer on their terms, when and where they need it. Boom, like that. And that sort of led me to start thinking about IDD services. It's like, okay, why does why did an institution exist? You know, then why did a group home exist? And you know, if you're going to go someplace, you got to understand why, because it exists because of some really important things. They wanted multiple staff to be present because they, you know, with the turnover, they needed to have a way for people to learn organically from experienced staff. So parents wanted multiple people there. They want somebody up at night. They want a supervisor in the home more frequently, and the larger the home is, the more likely that is that they can afford that. Needs ebb and flow, but if you have 4 to 6 people together, the needs are more constant, so it's more cost effective. I mean, there were reasons, right, where all that existed. So if you don't understand those reasons as a behavioralist, if you don't look at those reasons, how in the heck are you going to design something else that's farther in the future, that's closer to the vision of the final rule? You still got to meet those reasons. How do we meet those functions that parents have and are concerned about, like multiple eyes on the home, how they help staff that don't know how to do it, you know, answer questions. How do we help a client live more independently? How do you help a senior when they're disoriented and they need some help? How do they do all that? We always look at the reason things are the way they are, because those reasons are usually important. And if you ignore them or act like they're unimportant, you're not going to design an alternative that's going to be acceptable to the people that are decision makers, right? What we know now as what's possible is technology will solve those problems. It will allow us to be omnipresent wherever the need is, to help employees who don't know how to help somebody, or help the customer who is so independent that they don't need an employee to help them or a caregiver to help them. They just need somebody to virtually help them, right? Yeah. But the thing is, when I see a policy that goes out there and it says, well, you have to give the customer the choice between virtual support and in-home support. And I'm sitting there going, what a silly statement when you get right down to it. I mean, it's like, no, you want to have virtual support available, omnipresent, on all the time, to help both the customer and the employee so they can deliver support how and when they want it. I mean, how can you bust the store up and put everything out there in the community and not have supervision and not have the stuff that you know and I know the parents are going to say, we got to have it.
So how do we create this bandwidth of care for service providers now? How do we do that?
I look at Amazon and these places about deployment. I look at the fact that we have an Amazon center really very close to us. And that's probably why I can get products in, I can order it at 4 in the afternoon and it comes at 10, before 10 that night. I'll say, order by this and you get it by 10, and I know that we're kind of in an enriched area. So I kind of looked at that and I thought, okay, well, the end game may be to give something to somebody wherever they are. And the thing I don't want to do is have a group home, or a center. I want to do it in a community. Why don't I start with a neighborhood? And that's kind of where we came up with the concept of the neighborhood network. You can enrich a neighborhood. So instead of stop thinking of a home and you start looking at a neighborhood, possibly you can enrich a neighborhood like Amazon built a distribution center, and around that distribution center you can deliver goods and services in just a few hours. Well, maybe if you had it in a home, or in services in the neighborhood and not just a home, if they were organic amenity of a neighborhood, you could deliver services within minutes or even seconds of need. But I'm thinking, what if we just start looking at a neighborhood, take a well-selected neighborhood that has all the amenities that we want. Let's say you pick a neighborhood that's enriched, it's got the housing you want, it's got public transportation or the amenities you want, it's got a church, it's got a grocery store, it's got a park, it's got whatever that is, it's a neighborhood, and you can get around that neighborhood really, really quickly, right? I think that was the vision we started with. It's, again, I don't think it's where we're ending, but it's where we're starting with. It's the neighborhood network. And the concept behind the neighborhood network is a well-selected neighborhood infused with a human and technological woven support system where you can deliver care 24/7 within 5 minutes of need or quicker. Now, maybe it's a 2-bedroom apartment, maybe you have one other roommate. I mean, that's a heck of a lot closer, to the final rule than we're at, right? But the difference is, in a neighborhood, you're not staffing the home, you're staffing the neighborhood. You're deploying it to need. And so all of a sudden you're able to organically just help people. And then, as you'll see when we're going to do our virtual tour of this stuff, that you figure out that, wait a second, you don't even need to go. About 3/4 of the need, you can remotely life coach people. You don't have to go. Or, because of technology, you can automate things so that you can automate and solve a need as opposed to go there. Or you know them so well that you can coach them. This is, you do that, and then when you have to go, you go, or when you want to go, you go. I guess that's where we took the vision, and all of a sudden we went back and we said, what's the functions of the doggone group home? And how can we deliver the functions of the group home in a neighborhood that allowed the kind of life that you and I lead, but it lets people come to the neighborhood, live there in their own home, and get the support they need 24/7 in a very organic way. People think that we're taking the humans out of care, and of course you're not. You're leveraging their capabilities, and when you see the neighborhood network, what is so wonderful about it, and it really is a wonderful program, because we've totally got rid of the confines of the store. Yeah. The staffing strategies are different. We actually have professional neighbors who actually live in that neighborhood, and they're a part of the neighborhood. There's a lot of research about people who come into a community from the outside versus the value of being part of that community. There's no comparison. If you are part of a neighborhood, then your kids go to that school. You are living in it, and everything that's important to the other neighbors are important to you, right? how do you weave all these things into the fabric of a neighborhood so that support is an organic amenity of that neighborhood?
So professional neighbors are on location. They live in the neighborhood.
They have homes there.
They're immediately available for deployment. And at the same time, there's technology embedded into the neighborhood network that provides other kinds of support and care.
Yeah, and so like the component parts is a well-selected neighborhood. Then you infuse it with professional neighbors that are spaced out within the neighborhood, right? That live there and they work there. They live there, they work there. Then we usually lease or buy a apartment or a home within that neighborhood that's the hub of activities. We would have our remote pods, remote support pods. We have our the living room is converted to a conference room that has video conferencing, so we can bring other supports in. We have iLink technology that has remote support pods that's connected to all of the homes. It's where all the smart homes are all connected to that area so that staff can connect to a home and homes can connect to the staff using technology.
It's like the command center.
It is. It's like the hub of operations. So you got the professional neighbor, you got the hub of operations, and you got the people who live, in the neighborhood. And of course, we do have additional shift staff that works on top of that. One of the biggest problems in our industry is its reliance on part-time staff, and the reason, and these wonky, horrible schedules that nobody can work. Yeah. And they're always open. If you go chronically right now, the staffing crisis is this much pay and that much horrible schedules and bad working conditions. That's what it is. And they focus on the pay, and it's important. But when you're working split shifts and fractured, schedules and unattractive schedules, when you can work from home, working for another job, it's not even close, right? So when you have neighborhood staffing, you're not confined to these really wonky schedules. You can staff it like it's, quote, a big facility. Remember, we look back at why does it work in the big facilities? It's because the staffing can be different. But now, if you go to an individual home and staff it, it's wonky. But what if you staff a neighborhood? Then you can have these great schedules again. So, the neighborhood has these direct support staff on top of it and the professional neighbors, but they're working 3-day work weeks in our system, much more attractive schedules. And so and completely full-time, 100% full-time. Not one, instead of 32% part-time staff, which is the national average, 100% full-time staff, which is really like a huge thing. So now you have a neighborhood network that has all of these characteristics of the large facility, but it's facing the final rule. It's inclusive, it's highly distributed, all the homes are spread out among thousands of other homes that so they're completely immersed within other typical families. It's just a real home, but it's just a neighborhood system that's woven, into that. The other cool thing is since you're in the neighborhood, you're a professional neighbor, you develop and you provide care, human care, in-person care. You develop all these relationships. You get to know the person. You get specialized training, but you can actually be effective because you've got relationships. And so then you take those same professional neighbors who have that experience and care for people in person, and you have them support people also remotely. Well, if you have that knowledge and relationship, you can do a lot remotely that you could never do if you were in a call center in New Jersey. You can't do anything. You don't know the person. You can't really help them because you don't know how to help them, right? You don't have a relationship. They don't trust you. Why would they, right? But a professional neighbor can be remotely supporting somebody because they have that relationship, and it's the same person that also provides them care. So that's what we figured out is in this neighborhood, it's not just about the proximity or the technology or a well-selected neighborhood or the fact that you have it's the fact that you have these incredible relationships that you do. And so we actually program that where all the employees who remotely support people in that neighborhood are also the caregivers that deliver the care. They take turns, in other words.
So the neighborhood network, an important step that, we were able to get on a summit and look as far as we could into the future. And that's what we saw.
No. I think we saw farther than that.
Farther than that?
But I think this is what we did,
Yeah.
because this is what is possible.
Yes.
At least as far, look, it's what I think is possible. I actually have a hope for something else, down the road. I actually see something else down the road. But I think from a practical perspective, the neighborhood network's pretty far out there. It really is. It won the Moving Mountains Award in 2020, and in 2016, it won the Autism Speaks International Most Innovative Service Model. I think the neighborhood network is the right next thing. You check off the stuff, right? Yeah. You say, like, okay, the group home, it had multiple lives. Check. Yeah. It had staff that could learn from other staff. Okay, the neighborhood has lots of staff. The home didn't, but the neighborhood does. Check again, right? It has the ability to have night support when people need it. It has care that's delivered by people that know them well. You can go through all the things that were over here and check off, but with one major difference. It's closer to the final rule. People are living in their own homes. They're not living in a group home. They're living a more enriched life. They're not. You can't even see anybody else with this, but it's inclusive. Because they're maybe in a neighborhood that has hundreds of other homes, and there's only maybe 10 homes that's supported. Where group homes was that vision at one time, yeah, when you were sitting in an institution. Yeah. And now when you're sitting in a group home, or you're sitting at home with your own family and you want to live on your own, or you're on your way to assisted living as a senior, now this is the new vision until there's the next one on that never-ending trip to the future, right? Yes. But you have to use things you've never used in ways that you've never used them, and that's always a challenge. In our regulated world, it's always a challenge, because it's like, there's cameras, yeah, or an intercom, or other things, and I don't know that that's a good idea, or isn't that an invasion of privacy? And I'm going, well, I'm not sure about this, but I think a group home's a pretty big invasion of privacy, And then you can say, okay, now these are all that is to me, Evo, is okay. There's another list, and of objections. Now, before, the parents had the list of objections. I want multiple staff. Yeah. I want somebody up at night. I want a staff to learn from experienced staff. Remember, we made that list for why a group home is the list. Now somebody else gave me another list. Okay, now I got another list. Well, now we got issues of privacy and self-direction and that. Okay, now what if in technology, what if I can tell you that I can improve privacy, I can improve self-direction, I can improve a way of life with technology that wasn't possible, not just in the group home, but isn't possible with staffing. Yeah. So I think we have now a new service system. Okay, the first thing, a new paradigm of care on how you can deliver this care differently. The great natural supports is friends and others who want to help, right? I want to tell you something about a neighborhood. And I always knew this, but I didn't know how powerful it was. Neighbors want to help neighbors. There's just this humanity that goes there. And when you put people with need in a neighborhood, you put professional neighbors that advocate for neighbors with needs and make friends with other neighbors. You have a group of people that start coming out of the woodwork that want to help, that want, that are sort of part of the deal. And I'll tell you, the group that's the most powerful are the seniors. We have a neighborhood network in Douglas County, and we actually had a senior volunteer program merge into our program. But the reality is, in that neighborhood, it's a rental community, but about 25% of the people in that rental community are seniors. And they're looking for purpose. You know, they're also seeing the idea that this is a cool thing maybe for them down the road. But what you got is these neighbors helping neighbors kind of thing, and it just gets more powerful and more powerful. So you got the paid supports, you got the neighbors, you got the neighborhood support system, and it just starts to evolve and build and get more powerful and more powerful and more powerful. And I think that's pretty cool. And the other thing about a neighborhood network is there's some supports that you might technologically provide to across neighborhoods, like nursing, behavioral analysts, case management. That doesn't have to be within a neighborhood, but it can be remotely delivered to the neighborhood if you have a infrastructure in it to receive it.
Yes.
So it's got all that element to it, right?
Yeah, remember we spoke about the blue zones, the 6 blue zones that are scattered around the world. Those are places where people are the healthiest. Speaking of seniors, people that live to be 100 years old. There's 6 of those blue zones. But the one unifying factor, one variable, was human interaction and close-knit communities. All of these 6 blue zones had very close-knit neighborhoods, people interacting with each other, with their neighbors, and that apparently is very, very beneficial for people's health and for longevity.
Yeah, well, wrapping up today, I will tell you that I kind of wanted to take people from back into the future, right? And this is where the future is. And I want to maybe explore some of the secondary levels of concerns, like, and how we resolve them, like privacy and self-direction and those sort of things, and maybe meet a few people in the neighborhood network so that you can kind of look at this elephant from different perspectives, so that people can see, you know, maybe how we can do it differently with the same, actually, you know, the same resources that we're delivering to group homes and centers. But now we can get rid of the places and the walls and deliver it in a way that is really like organic and helpful for the person we serve, but also helpful for the people who are delivering the care, you know. But if you take both of those groups in a neighborhood and elevate both and give them both more of what they want, working close to home, professional neighbors, right? Yeah. Getting paid a really good wage, having that flexibility and great schedules and delivering care, and then the client side, you don't have somebody sitting in your home. You have that organic ability. You can learn how to self-direct more. You get comfortable with virtual care, you know, and you have these relationships, and you have the natural supports of the community. You're architecting all of that up. I think it's win-win-win, right? You got to make it a win for the person, the employee, the volunteer, and the agency. It's got to be a win for everybody, and I think this is a pretty good start.
And next time we'll probably dive deeper into how
it's the how
that can be accomplished,
and see it a little bit for yourself. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. Listen. You guys get your podcasts wherever you get them, and Good Life U, and this episode is available wherever that is. So until next time.